Hello and welcome to the Daily Atheist Morning Show. It is Friday. It's finally Friday, but what does Friday mean nowadays? It's just another day for most of us. So hello everybody. I hope you had a good week. I hope you're healthy. I hope everything is going well. I have got guest host Damien AtHope with me today. Good morning, Damien. How are you doing?
Hi.
And we have also got today's special guest, Marie Delafont. She's a lot of fun. I love saying your name. It's just so fun. Delafont.
You're welcome.
Right? Yeah, that's cool. So Marie Delafont is joining us on the show today. So good morning, Marie.
Thanks for having me. Good morning.
You're welcome. Oh, for those of you who don't know us, or for those of us who don't know you, would you please, if you don't mind, give us a quick introduction? Tell us who you are. I'm sure everybody knows you.
Oh, I'm sure everyone knows me. I mean, have you not met me? Yeah, I need like a chart because I'm doing like a million things right now. But I am, let's see, what do I do? I host the Everyone's Autonomous podcast, where I talk about moving on from religion and gaining autonomy over your life. I am the manager for Dave Warnock of Dying Out Loud. I am the virtual assistant to Dr. Marlene Weinell, writer of Leaving the Fold. I do life coaching work around ethical non-monogamy and also just coaching work around personal organization and interpersonal communication. Is that all I do? Oh, and I'm a photographer.
That's a lot.
Yeah. I like having lots of eggs in many baskets.
Gotcha. How long have you been doing all this? How long has this been your thing?
Which one?
Right. I know. Well, I guess start at the beginning, right? You are a personal assistant.
Right. So I've been in administrative work for over 10 years and then just kind of got into virtual self-employment for the last year. So, and then with Dave, I've been working with him for, it's probably a little bit over a year anniversary that he and I have been doing Dying Out Loud. My podcast has been up since November, but before that I was on Everyone's Agnostic for a year. Life coaching, I started last summer. Photography I've done since 2011. And then Marlene and I started working together back in December, I would say.
Gotcha. How did you meet Dave? That's how I met you is through Dave. You and Dave. I saw you, I think on Neil's show? The 604 Atheist. Have you been on Neil's?
Dave was on there.
Oh yeah, it was probably then. And then I got with him and then I met you and had you both on the show. And I've kind of been watching your adventures since. You went on your trip to the beach. It looked like you had some fun, good memories.
So many good memories with pot and the sun and the beach. Yes. But I think you and I got in touch probably through Dave being on that show. I don't know. I've met a lot of people. It's hard to keep track.
I know. It's been such a big thing as I try to get so many people on the show, different people. I've met Aaron Raw. He's been on my show, Dr. Carrier's been on my show. All these people have been on my show and they just come and go. And I don't, it's a blur. I can't imagine how you do with all the things you've got going on.
I just try not to care. I just do my thing, not worry about other people too much.
Well, so how's he? Go ahead, Amy.
I was going to say, so you mentioned non-monogamy. I have an atheist page, an atheist group of atheists for non-monogamy, and I've been in a non-monogamous marriage for over 10 years.
Yeah.
Maybe 12, I'm not sure. 11.
Cool. Yeah, see, a lot of people are doing it. They just don't talk about it. So I figure I don't have a lot to lose now that I'm self-employed, and especially since Delafont isn't my real last name. So I made it up, but it gives me a chance to be able to, speak more loudly about it and normalize it and explain why it's actually very, very functional and requires advanced communication skills and advanced notions of autonomy. And so I really like talking about it to empower other people to share their experiences or at least consider deconstructing like the default value of monogamy.
Yeah, and I find in general that I was pretty surprised that atheists weren't more accepting. When I started talking about it maybe 5-6 years ago, I actually had 5 people on my friends list on Facebook just unfriend me for it. I was like, wow, really?
Yeah, there's a lot of stigma around it for sure.
So I
They're
didn't.
like, you're cheating. And I'm like, no, I'm not.
Nope.
Yeah, see, that's kind of a surprise to me. I didn't. I mean, we're normally a fairly open-minded group of folk.
Well, yeah, well, I mean, 5 out of, my 5,000 friends on my Facebook.
Yeah.
But still, still, I was shocked. I'm like, seriously? You're gonna unfriend me over this?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. And they won't even like ask to know, like, well, how does it work, to then evaluate, well, is this ethical or not? Or am I just going to go ahead and just judge a word?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
judge a behavior that they don't understand. I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty. But I think it's gotten more accepting. It seems since then. I mean, then it was a couple of years ago, but it seems like
Right.
now it is getting to be more normalized. I think it's
Yeah.
culture in general, probably though. Also,
Yeah. Yeah, I would think so. Yeah. I mean, I know I stigmatized it before I started exploring it. I was like, that's for Mormons, like that's why I feel a lot of compassion towards people who don't understand it, because I'm just a few years, back. I'm just a few years back seeing things that way. And so like, I don't blame them. It's just the culture right now. So that's why I'm interested in talking about it and enlightening people in terms of at least how I experience it.
yeah, I don't talk about it a lot, but I do like to bring it up because I think that we need to normalize it. Hey, I'm a person and I do it, and it's not some freaking thing. It's not like I'm not doing orgies and stuff. I mean,
Even if you were, doesn't matter.
No, I understand. I agree with that. But I'm just
Yeah.
saying, but their opinion is everyone that does this is doing that. And I'm like, yeah, just like I've turned people down that are interested in me. And I'm like, just because I'm an open marriage doesn't mean I want to sex with everybody. I mean, it's still like dating. You still have to be attracted, or generally. I mean, so it's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
It's the same thing that happens when you find out that someone's bisexual or pansexual. Then people have this problem of assuming now that everyone, like, they're into everyone, and it's like, no,
Right.
I still have standards, honey.
Real quick, I want to shout out to the people in the chat. Godless Granny, Brainbug, Epileptic Skeptic, all these wonderful people. Best name ever. Julie Lavoie, they're all showing up. It's nice to have you this morning. Critical Cripple was here. Alias Fake Name is here. There's a lot of folk showing up to see Miss Telephone. So I just want to say hi to everybody while we have the chance. Now I also want to ask. Neil, you said you have not been on Neil's show yet. Neil is real big into deconversion stories. Neil would love to have your story. I feel it in my brain.
Neil's got me on his I mean, we're friends on Facebook. It's just it's never popped up.
Oh, I see. Well, I'll just have to rattle his cage. See what'll happen. Here's what happens. This is what happens. I know, right? I am now going to ask you, Marie, would you not mind telling us briefly your deconversion story? And if he hears you telling that on my show, he'd be like, hey, that's my job. And he'll verbally get me over the internet. So that's how we get him out to come out of the woodwork, is to, would you mind briefly telling me your deconversion story? I'm sure he'll come at me in the chat.
Well, once upon a time, I believed in God. Then I thought about it, and then I didn't anymore. It's like as brief as I can get.
See,
do you want more?
Only tiny bit. See, now in your particular case, you were in a particular group of religious folk who stigmatized X, Y, and Z, and then you shed that group and now embrace X, Y, and Z. So the challenge, the gauntlet has been like, that's okay. He occasionally he'll try to taser me through the internet.
That's very aggressive.
It is. Well, you know how Neils are.
You know how men are. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. You win.
No.
So if you don't mind, how did you get to doing what you're doing?
Sure. So the long and short of it is that I was raised in an evangelical family and it never really sat right with me, but I internalized all that fear of hell and like needing to believe the right thing. And that so I drank all the Kool-Aid, but I still had so many questions, a lot of cognitive dissonance that I didn't allow come to the surface because of the fear innate in what they teach you about needing to think and believe the right thing. So I started doubting when I was 13, but didn't really lean into it. And so I kind of went through this roller coaster ride of like doubting, believing, doubting, believing. But meanwhile, I was in an absolute Christian bubble, Christian, going to church twice a week, going to a Christian school, all Christian friends, only Christian music, just super insulated. And it was intentional on my behalf because I really did believe it. And I thought that that was a pure way to live. But I kept on having those doubts, and they were just kind of driving me crazy. Like, what does this keep coming back? I need to prove to God that I'm very sincere about trying to believe this. I'm not trying to fuck around. I'm not trying to like sin or live some kind of lukewarm life. And so I got really serious about it. And after high school, since Jesus was coming back anyway, I just decided to get into missions work because college was a waste of time and an indulgence. And from that perspective at the time. And so I got into missions work for 2 years in Mexico with Youth with a Mission. And that galvanized me even further, got me into some even more extreme mystical elements of Christianity, like believing in miracles, like legs appearing out of stumps, like shit like that, or like trees talking to you. So that made things really messy. And I got very extreme, yet at the same time, these seasons of doubt would come back. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, if missions can't do it, if moving away from my home and my family can't do it, if giving up everything can't do it, I don't know what I'm doing. And eventually I just got exhausted and I left missions work, came back home, and just kind of went through like 15 years of depression and like fallout of gradually losing my faith, which took maybe about 5 years after that point. I got married into a really kind of a shitty marriage that didn't really help me or him. And then after that, I got into a better relationship that I've been in since then. And it's been very supportive and safe. And it's been a good place to start working on my religious trauma, which is something I started doing about maybe 5 years ago or so, after I dealt with my eating disorder and everything else that misogyny can cause in a woman. So that I began looking into religious trauma, and that led me to the podcast Life After God with Ryan Bell. I'd found a lot of other podcasts before that, but they were usually just a lot of really self-righteous white men. Not pointing at anyone in here, but like, at least for me, I wanted to land somewhere that was a bit more emotionally nuanced, and wanted to talk about the real shit without setting everything on fire with aggression. And Ryan Bell created that safe space on his show, and it was more nuanced, which I appreciated. And then his show led me to Cass Midgley on Everyone's Agnostic, because Ryan interviewed Cass on his show. And I don't know what it was about Cass that drew me to his show, because he's so different than me. So I honestly don't know, but like hearing stories from folks and was really cathartic, and hearing other people express things that I could only ever just feel in my stomach, and they were able to say it so coherently and articulately, was just really healing, and a salve to my soul, whatever that is. And so I really valued that show, and ended up asking if I could be on it as a part of my working with religious trauma inside of myself, sharing my story, being unapologetic about the trauma that I've gone through, and unembarrassed of it. And so I invited myself onto the show, and was just like shaking the whole time, like super nervous to tell my story, but it was fucking addicting. And it was cathartic and healing and validating, and I wanted more. And so I went in search for more resources. I started dealing with sexual repression issues from being raised in purity culture in the 90s. Pardon me. And that led me to Dr. Daryl Ray's work, who's the president of Recovering from Religion, but he also hosted a show at the time called Secular Sexuality, which the ACA has since purchased and is running as a show. But he had me on his show talking about purity culture. And then, in 2017, my partner and I decided, you know what? I don't think I can detox from sexual purity by just hanging out with you for the rest of my life. Because, you haven't been around. You don't know what you're doing. I don't know what I'm doing. And so we were like, you know what? For my healing and for my growth, we're going to open up our marriage. And so that is what got me on the path of non-monogamy, which I guess I could say that I identify as such for the last 3 years, I think. Does that sound right? Yeah. So that got me into that. Clearly the work with the podcast with Cass Midgley, I became the co-host of that in November of 2018 for a year. Then he closed that off. But through that show, I got to meet Dave Warnock because he's one of Cass's closest friends. And Cass hosted a retreat in Tennessee, and I got to meet Dave there. And I've said it on other shows too, but I didn't like him.
Oh, really?
No, I loved him, but I did love him, but he is one of those guys, or came from a culture where you just go up and hug people. And then even worse, so he kissed me on the cheek. And I was like, I knew it was a kind and warm thing, but I was like, come on, dude. But then just a few months after that, he was diagnosed with Lou Gehrig's disease. ALS is not the same thing, right? I don't remember. ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. I don't know. He's dying. So that's the point. And I saw him in Tennessee a week after he got diagnosed, and we were talking about it. And I was so curious about it because something that I've held over since I left Christianity is a fear of suffering and dying and aging and death. Very, very severe fear of it, and trying to find ways to come to peace with it. But therapy doesn't help you answer existential questions like, why are we here, and how to cope with death, other than telling you just to breathe. And that's not super helpful. So Dave has kind of been a lightning rod for me in terms of working through my fears of death and stuff. And I heard him talking about what he's going through, and I was like, dude, you need to have a microphone right now. Like, we need to get you with microphone. So he and I started working together and getting him on podcasts, and then that just took off. And then he just started traveling, and now it's just become the purpose of his life until it's not. But everything's kind of come to a halt with Dave stuff because usually it's about traveling. He was going to be going to Europe next month, but yeah, that can't happen. Clearly we're all affected. So not boohoo us, but that's just, it is what it is. But so that's been my work with Dave. And, Cass, when he shut down his podcast, I was not done talking. And so I started the Everyone's Autonomous podcast, which is a theme that I value above everything else. I don't need a Bible that's, 600, 700 pages long that takes people with PhDs to tell you what it means. I like the word autonomy. That's really what it comes down to for me, that we all have freedom over the things that belong to us. And that can answer a lot of questions that you have about how to engage with people and how to treat people and what to judge and what not to judge and what to celebrate and what not to celebrate. And so that's kind of the conversations that I have on the podcast that I've started. And then I quit my job last year to focus on Dave, traveling with Dave, promoting Dave, working on my own stuff, being a virtual assistant, my podcast, my photography. COVID-19 is kind of a surprise. I think everything will be okay, but it certainly is not something I was looking for after taking the risk to pursue self-employment as a secular activist. But long story short, I don't know how short that was, but that's the shortest I've been able to tell it. That's kind of how I got involved in all the things that I'm involved in.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, Neil, I'm sure will be here shortly. You know how he is. Anyway. Yeah, I know. Well, that's a heck of a story.
Well, thank you.
I mean, you've got a lot packed in there very quickly.
I've told it a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet. Well, they were kind of in the crowd. Digital Hammurabi has showed up. He kind of wants to agree with you. You don't need those stinking PhDs. I'm shocked. There it was.
Just treat
And
people like they're people.
yeah, and with where I've seen a lot of what's going on with you and Dave. Dave. Unlike everybody else though that I've run into, Dave is kind of on a clock. Well, I was all excited. I'm going to go to the American Atheist event. They're even going to give me a booth, and I'm going to get to rub elbows with folk. And then I'm not. I was going to, a faithless forum. Is it going to? It's hopefully, maybe. I don't know. All these things are in question. So many things have been canceled and put off till next year. For me, that's fine, right? Next year, they're going to have it in the same place. It's going to be real close. Things like that for Dave just aren't the same, though.
That's right.
So I bet this has been particularly difficult in his situation to now suddenly be, and then he can't afford to get it, the corona, right?
He might have it. I don't know. He's been sick, like pretty sick for the last week. So I haven't heard a ton from him. He's had a fever and stuff. And I don't know if it's the same symptoms, but yeah, he's not been well. I don't know if the corona would fuck him up any more than it would someone else, because it's mostly just the muscles. Well, his lungs are muscles, but it hasn't gotten into his lungs yet. He tried to get testing and they wouldn't give it to him because he didn't have enough symptoms.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
That's such a tough thing. Of course, I don't want to let the show be driven by that going on, but it's just everywhere now. All of our lives have now been affected. It's hard not to talk about it. Grocery shopping. Wasn't it you who posted you were going grocery shopping and it was giving you anxiety, or was it somebody else?
I don't think so, but yeah.
Yeah, it does. Well,
it's a very apocalyptic to walk through those aisles and see all those things empty and seeing people with shopping carts just full of groceries. It's a little scary. But the weird thing is, like, now I'm in this place that I don't know if you guys have seen that meme of that dog sitting in hell with the flames all around him, and he's just sitting at a table drinking tea, and like the text is, "This is fine."
Yeah.
But like I kind of feel like that in the sense that, like, of acceptance. Like, I know I have a lot of privilege in the ease by which I'm able to accept hell on earth. And at the same time, there's not a ton that I can do other than stay home to support our medical community and stuff. So in a sense, I'm trying to focus on what I can and can't control. And I can't control a lot about this, especially I feel, I know all the underprivileged people who are being affected, and this is going to hit them worse than it hits anyone else, and it's going to have repercussions on their lives longer than it's going to have on any of our lives. And so what's bad is going to be made worse.
Right.
And I know that I'm not going to be one of those people, likely. And so it's hard not to think about the global impact on human lives right now, even though I'm not included in that. And so it's hard to balance that deep sense of empathy for my fellow primates and then feel like, well, what can I do? And I can't. The thing you got to do right now is stay home. And if you know how to sew, I guess you make masks. You got to take inventory of what you can do and take inventory of what you can't.
Yeah.
Because we're not going to help anyone by exhausting ourselves with emotional, unproductive labor. You know what I mean?
Right. Stressing over it just to stress over it.
Yeah.
Well, and people are going to experience emotional or empathetic fatigue. They're going to be overwhelmed, and so we have either you break down and you want to commit suicide, or you just crying, or you have to compartmentalize it because it's just too much. I mean, people just dying all the time.
Yeah.
Well,
but luckily there's room in the middle, right? Like, you don't have to not do anything, and there's something that you can do too. Like I was in this state for a while, and then I decided, you know what? I don't have money. I don't have money to give away. I don't have medical knowledge I can give away. I'm not, virus free, and that I can go around touching people and licking them and helping them. I don't know why that would be helpful, but I can't do that. But I was like, you know what? I do have a certain set of skills. I have knowledge that I could give away for free or for like very, very, very low cost. And so like I put together a webinar about tips on how to work from home. And I did it for free. And I figure like empowering folks to work from home who have never worked from home before, because I've been doing it since July, and it's been a learning curve for me. And not everyone has that much time to try to figure it out. And so, like, I know I can teach people how to do that. I can give away my knowledge, you know? So I think it's really important to take inventory of what you can and can't do and how you can provide information or help to other people. Because we all can do something, I think. And if nothing else, just staying home and washing your hands, you know?
Yeah. Well, you know, I recently had an experience, and for me, it was the grocery shop. And I went down to the grocery store, and you know how they usually have the little handy wipes you can pull out to wipe the basket down. So I went over to that little thing after I got my basket, and it was empty. But they had a like a little roll of dry paper towel, like the brown paper towels, the hard one that you rip off. They had that there, like a part of a roll, and a squeeze bottle. So I pick up the squeeze bottle, and it's empty. So there's a hand thing over there that you can pump to get some stuff. So I take my hand and I pump it to get and it's empty too. And so I've touched all these things that everybody who's been walking in there trying to get hand sanitizer to protect themselves. Now I've touched it all with no solution. I mean, I was stressed through the whole thing. I got all my crap. I didn't touch my face. I didn't touch my phone. When I got out to the car, I touched the outside door handle, but as soon as I sat down, I wiped. I didn't touch my steering wheel. I didn't shut the door until after I had wiped all that stuff. I mean, it got in my brain. It's getting in my brain. But you got to be that way.
It sounds exhausting. Yeah, it sounds exhausting. And I don't think you did anything wrong. Like,
right.
That's not absurd or over the top, but it is exhausting. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but you know, there are other people, the medical professionals who go out and face this stuff all the time. They have got stones, big stones, because I can't, you know, just going to the grocery store freaks me out.
Yeah.
And these people go deal with it. I don't know how they do.
Yeah. Yeah, I just read an article on Medium last night because I was high, and it was really fun to read articles on Medium last night about a woman who was like, I did not sign up for this. She was a medical professional, and she listed like all these things that she did signed up for like being, you know, yelled at by your patient, being spit on, being vomited on, being coughed into your mouth, like all these things that medical professionals are. I mean, she was an X-ray technician, I think. And so they tell you all these things in school, like, this is what you're signing up for, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, but I did not sign up for this. I did not sign up for wearing one mask for 3 days or whatever. Like, I did not sign up for, so like they did sign up for something, but the risks that they're taking on right now are just absurd. And they have a lot to do with what, I guess, supply and demand and hoarding, I guess.
Yeah. Well, there's a lack of supply for one. We knew it was coming, but we did nothing to prepare. So why would we, there's no surprise in that we're running out of supplies. And then now that they're getting, I really don't believe the nurses are hoarding stuff. I don't.
No, not the nurses. No.
Yeah. Well, yeah. The political crap that's going on where they're being those kind of things. Yeah, we should have been more prepared. Anyway, my wife's a nurse, so I kind of feel it close to home. You know.
Yeah.
She's got stones like this.
Well, good, I guess. I don't have any of those, but I'm still hella brave.
She's gonna kill me. Yeah, you know, the other day I was doing the show here, and I'm like, you know what? I want to tell you guys something. She don't like it when I talk about this, but she won't watch this anyway. She came home that night and she goes, you know what? I got a bone to pick with you. And she was watching me.
They're always watching.
They're always, and now she's in the other room.
Yeah. Oh
no. So if you hear screaming, you know,
it's just you.
It's just me. Don't mind it. It's nothing. Yeah. So, so this whole thing has changed our world, and it's just I've been watching plague movies recently. I watched Contagion the day before yesterday. Wonderful movie. Very, very. Yeah, they predicted a lot about what would happen here. It's a movie, and the drama is more, like long before this point, they were, the stores were overrun with crazed people, and neighbors were killing neighbors long before where we're at now. We're taking it much easier than they predicted in the movie. But as far as the virus transmission and how all that happens, and the it teaches you how to know like the life cycle of a virus, how long it goes, because they fight it throughout. It's really interesting and cool to watch. Yesterday I watched Outbreak. You guys remember that one with the monkeys? Yeah. And that one, they had helicopter chases in that one. So it wasn't as good, but it did have a lot of interesting information. The wife, she doesn't want to watch that stuff with me, so I'll watch it. Obviously, I guess, for obvious reasons.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the other interesting thing about like how do you manage your emotional health in all of this, like balancing staying informed and making the right choices versus like handling the knowledge of a global pandemic in your little homo sapien mind like all day long. But I don't know that we were built for that kind of stress. And then any kind of effort to not to turn off the news, like I think is accompanied by some kind of shame. Like I'm not doing good enough because I'm not staying informed. Like I can't put my head in the sand or whatever, because that's not responsible. But to some extent, I think it is a little responsible. Like if you know the basics of what you need to do, you don't really need to watch the 24-hour news anymore, maybe, or figure out some kind of way to consume that news in a concentrated amount of time and then move on with your day. Because I'm having a hard time with that. Like thinking about it all the time and it just being exhausting. I think someone called it adrenal exhaustion or something like that. Your adrenaline runs for way too long, for way too many days, and it just gets to you,
Yeah, I understand. I cried yesterday when I saw there was over 5,000 deaths in the United States. Like, wow, man.
Yeah.
But I did, like you said, I just started, I watched it, cried, and then I said, it's time for comedy. So I started listening to comedy shows because I was like, I need to get out of this mindset.
Yeah.
Well, like in your case though, you're not unlike me, who was already at home all the time beforehand. So now in your case, so now your wife is home with you. So it's made it even more, I mean, it's not claustrophobic. No offense to the wife. I'm sure you know what I mean. It's just now your world has changed. It's gotten even smaller,
Yeah, and I only have a 1-bedroom apartment. So it makes it even smaller.
So, and some of these things we see on the news, like Marie was saying, some of these things are, I turned on the news and it said apocalyptic death toll in New York. And this was like weeks ago. And it was like 9 people had died. They haven't seen the movie apparently. They were talking millions of deaths, and that's an apocalyptic death toll. And so it was like scary. Even the people I think are on our side are trying to scare the hell. I get it. But then there's on the other side, these people who are like, it ain't that big a deal. Let's go golfing. Come on, let's go golfing. Where's our church? Let's get our ministers together. Listen, if they won't let us congregate at the church, come over to my house. We'll have a barbecue. Over there, we're hypersensitive over here to it. I'm sitting in my car going, after grocery shopping, and these people don't believe it's real. It's very scary.
Yeah. And I don't know if either of you used to be Christian. I don't know if we've talked about that or if I remembered, but okay. The kind of Christianity I came from, I could easily see myself behaving that way.
Oh, I totally would. I was, in fact, I used to fly on planes when I was a Christian, and people next to me would say, I'm scared. And I'd go like, oh, you're okay, because God's going to protect me. He has a plan for my life. So even if the plane crashes, I will somehow live, and you're next to me, so you may get the side benefit. I mean, I was completely delusional.
Yeah.
Wow.
So this pandemic, I would have gone, God's got me. If not, then God wants me, and who cares? I mean,
And there was something comforting about that. I can see why they would not want to let go of that, especially right now. And I was really disturbed because I was doing research for a client of mine, which meant that I had to go look up Twitter Christian apologists, which was just but I saw one of them was like praising God because so many people were coming back to the church. And I had to be like, what, wait, what? You're excited that people are so terrorized that they're willing to make up something.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're willing to tell themselves a story that does not exist. You're so excited that people are terrified. And I remember thinking the same way that he thought back then too. Like, wow, this, Katrina or whatever is going to bring so many people to God. And I had no dissonance about that. Like, I really thought that that was a legitimate way to bring people to God. Did either of you ever watched Arrested Development?
Yeah,
I did not.
No. Okay.
No.
Well, either way, it's still funny, but there's like some flashbacks of like telling about how the kids were raised and their parents are narcissists and just terrible people. And the parents would set up these elaborate, like, scenarios, contrived scenarios, where like in the end, like the uncle would end up like his leg being chopped off and like blood spewing all over the place. And then all of a sudden they'd look at the kids and be like, and this is what happens when you don't leave a note. So it's like these elaborate traumatic scenarios to teach kids moral behaviors. And I'm like thinking about that. I'm like, that is your God. Mm-hmm. That is your God pretending to cut off his leg and die on the boat so that you'll remember you need to leave a note. Like, does anyone think that this is normal? Did anyone not think, like, watch Arrested Development and be like, this is my parenting approach now. This is a good idea because that's your God.
Yeah. I've seen, well, I do a series called Quickie with the Skeptic where I talk about, I haven't done one in a while and I need to. I talk about believers who end up killing their kids or something, like with by not taking them to the doctor, by praying over them instead, or anointing them with oils when they really need, real medicine. I mean, it's hard to believe that stuff still goes on now, but their detachment with reality is significant. And I remember being one of them, being a Christian. And like you said, Damien, where I felt like there was invincibility to a degree, but now their invincibility is getting other people killed.
Oh, yeah.
Or will, whenever they go to the church or they meet at some home and they start spreading this to elderly people, this is going to be a rough deal if it continues.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it makes me sad too, because I feel like even if in a religious family, even if the parent is doing this, the parent is an adult, they have a right to kill themselves, to me, because to me, like you said about autonomy, I believe in self-ownership. People own themselves. That means they are allowed to do, to me, whatever they want with their own personal life, unless it dramatically affects others. So if they want to go do this, fine. But the problem is they go back to children, that they're choosing the child's, not the child's choice. They're choosing this dangerous behavior. And then, like you said, then the elderly, or how about their neighbors? And how about the people at the grocery store? And how about the people, at the restaurant or food or whatever, the gas station? So these people have a self-right, but they're violating the rights and safety of multiple people.
At what point does it constitute murder for a pastor to, to deny the rules and gather his people? At what point? They know it's happened. They've seen it happen to other churches. You've heard about the choir. Did you hear about the choir where they went through extreme, they washed their hands, they didn't touch anything, but it was a choir. So they're standing next to each other, singing and inhaling and singing. And like 19 of them got the virus. 3 of them are already dead, kind of thing. These people just don't listen. They don't realize.
They don't listen, but in a way, whenever us atheists or non-religious folks get on these diatribes about like, how dumb Christians are, they won't listen, we're just, masturbating ourselves, because like the issue is we already know they can't do it differently. Like, this is a structure of it. And I think to some extent we're complaining about what already is. And I'm curious about like how can we work with what is. Like my friend is trying to do that. He's trying to weasel his way into Christianity to try to make a difference from the inside, even though he doesn't believe in any of it. And like try to make them hurt people less
Yeah.
by supplanting interesting ideas and stuff. But I mean, I don't know. I just get a little exhausted just complaining about Christians and choices that they're making, especially as a former Christian, because I know that I could not have made a different choice. I know that that is what the world was like for me. And I know that it would be useless for any kind of an atheist to have come up to me and been like, yeah, but viruses, yeah, but you're making your kids sick. And I'm like, no, see, you don't understand who I work for. Like, he's got it covered, you know? So I don't know what to do about that.
Well, something like this is a challenge from science to their God. I get it. Yeah. It's a challenge, and their God can answer that challenge. You know, if my faith is strong, I'm not going to, I get it. Totally. Yeah. How do you fight that? How do you fight that without, or do you fight it? You know?
I think it's maybe another one of those things that we don't have control over. I just know that lately I've just been feeling really tired of conversations where we're just saying how stupid Christians are because we know better. Especially us who are formerly Christian. I'm never ever going to look back at myself and be like, "Oh, I was so stupid." Like that was what my. Do you? Fair enough.
I look back and you're taking one perspective. My perspective is we have to constantly talk about it because the issue is left in silence means that it allows it to permeate. So it's just like sometimes people will say, stuff like, well, people choose to be gay. And then you can ask them back, right? Which is a logical question. When did you choose to be straight? So the point is, I think that I understand. It's not that what you're saying to me is not valid. It's valid. I just think it's not the only valid position.
Right.
Sure.
My notion is shining a light on it. Yeah, keeping the light shined on it whenever they do things like this, because they are actively hurting other people. Yeah. Despite they can play innocent and ignorant, and it's their faith, just like you and I just discussed, and they believe that, but they're hurting other people. And if we don't talk about it, then now I agree with you though, to constantly harp on how dumb they are and how stupid they are. Well, we've already established it's not so much about being dumb; it's a matter of being faithful and proving your love for God. Or indoctrinated, yeah, hand in hand. So it's less about being stupid, but yeah, I get it.
I feel for them too, because like you said, I remember being so delusional that I thought I couldn't die. I mean, so I get I feel for them. But in general, that's why I generally say attack thinking, not people. Like you said, don't pick on the people, attack the behavior, attack the thinking, because the behavior can change, thinking can change.
Yeah.
See, my understanding of the situation is this: whenever I die, you all stop existing. It's like when I close my eyes, you can't see me. Wasn't that cool? That was cool. You didn't know I could do that. I just disappeared right there in front of everybody. So I just had to go there. Sorry.
Isn't that object permanence that like a baby learns within like 6? But you did miss that whole thing.
That's great that you know that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Comment: some American Friends timelines on Facebook is really revealing a lot of Americans have no idea how the rest of the world views them. That's a good point. I know how they view us, or I suspect how they view us. How do you think they view us? I would say their view. This is in response to a post in the chat. I mean, obviously, I think we've kind of become the laughingstock of the country, of the world. It's just kind of how I see it now.
Rightly
but now,
so.
Yeah, it's more of like the tears as they watch us do everything wrong while addressing this current situation. So that's how I don't know. I don't know if y'all feel the same way.
It depends on who you focus on, I suppose.
Yeah, I try not to be too much of an all anti or all political show. We've got so many things to talk about. We were talking about with shining a light on it or not talking about it enough. Talking about it, there are so many things going on in the world that part of the reason why I believe shining a light on it is important is because in a lot of cases, they're actively, besides the virus type of situation, these religious groups are actively out to harm and or control us in one fashion or another. That we've often talked on the show about Project Blitz, where they're doing things throughout the states. They're trying to run laws in our country that are pro-religious laws. They want to have "In God We Trust" put on schools. I think they're already having it put on all the government buildings in certain states. You know, these kind of things. The moment of silence laws going on down in Florida and other states that they've got. There's some states where they actually have to say a prayer, if I remember right. I'm going to take that one back for sure, because I'm not sure they're doing that, but they're trying. They're actively out there trying to push their nutbaggery on us all the time. So that's one of my purposes, is to continue to kind of go, hey, you know, look at this. Because if you stop, they will. We've talked about it on the show several times. My fans are probably tired of hearing about me harping about it, but the denial of care bill they're trying to push through in Kentucky, where if they come on you and they come up to you on it's a denial of medical care based on religious beliefs. So where does that end? It's for medical providers, insurance companies, anybody in the medical field can deny you care because of their religious beliefs. So if you're gay and then they have a problem with that, boom, done. Where does that stop? If you're a Muslim, can I deny you care? If I roll up on you in a car accident and it's a Muslim family and you're bleeding out and I'm a Christian, and can I actually wash my hands of that and turn away, and the state be okay with that and just go, hey, you need somebody out here who will help these people? And why is it that the people who believe in Christ and love and mercy are the ones who do this shit? The ones who are out there actively trying to harm other people. That's exactly what they're going for. No, we can't help you because we don't agree with your lifestyle. Done. Where's the mercy and love and peace in that? There's none. If there's somebody actively out there trying to harm somebody, it's Christians. Rant over. Sorry.
Burn it down.
I think that if they have that right of self-choice, then the company or the government has the right to not employ you.
Right. They should not be allowed to work in those fields.
I won't help people. Okay, bye-bye.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like if you're up on a plane and you're in the door seat. They ask you, will you open the door, help others? And if you say no, they make you move. You need to move to another seat then.
Yeah. The whole premise is do no harm, right? So if you're going to sign up to harm only some people, then you probably shouldn't sign up.
That's right. Or you should leave.
And or you should leave. And there are instances where, you know, so when I signed on to this ambulance company, I was just a normal person. And then, you know, I found Muhammad this past weekend, and now I can't do this and can't do this. And the company has to bend to that to a degree. And I think that's not right. I think that, I understand that beforehand, they came into it under this agreement, but the employer came into it under this agreement as well. And then to sit there and be like an EMT in Kentucky and go, you know what? I know I wouldn't do this before, but now I can't help Christians if I come across a Christian in an accident. I just can't do that. I can't help gays. Or I can't help colored people, or I can't help whoever pisses me off or whatever. I don't think it's fair to the company to be forced to continue to hire that person in any way. You know, no, you can't drive an ambulance. Now you can work a desk. I don't think that's fair to the company.
Yeah.
Just kind of my thinking. Having nothing to do with Marine.
Putting them on a desk would still be better than having them out there in a vehicle where they are denying care.
That's true. It's Kim Davis, anyone. True enough.
Yeah, they're talking about that. And someone's asking about chick tracks, epileptic skeptic.
Yes.
I didn't really get into those a whole bunch. I saw them in bathrooms and stuff, and I thought that they were really clever marketing tools. Like, I was happy when I saw them in a bathroom or like a hotel room or whatever. And I was happy when people were I thought they were oversimplified. I was like, you don't understand the complexity of faith, but like whatever will get you in. Like,
really?
That was my view of chick tracks.
Well, you know, if you don't mind, I am unfamiliar completely with what a chick track is.
Oh, they're just these little pamphlets with little cartoons on it that tell you that you're going to hell and then you should accept Jesus Christ. And people usually strategically leave them in places like bathroom stalls and stuff so that you'll find them. It's kind of this like, geocaching. Like that's the way I felt about it in Christian. I didn't have the words for it, but I do now that I know what geocaching is. But it's like geocaching because you leave these little treasures around and you know that someone's going to find it and it's going to be magical for them. And like, who knows where those are. And
How many people have picked one of those up and go, you know what? I was wondering what to do with my life. And then all of a sudden I saw this chick track and it was like a right from Jesus speaking to me, telling me what to do. I could see that. Yeah.
I'm
Like you were
sure
saying,
there's
it's
some-
special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's magic. People like magic. Magic's fun to believe in. And if you know it's not real, it's fun to pretend that it's real.
Right. Yeah. One of the things that, let's see, it was Julie DeVoice pointed out was that if you go to a pharmacy with a prescription, the pharmacist can refuse to give you the morning after pill for religious reasons. Stuff like that. You know, I just don't think the medical sciences and religion are a place where you need to be trying to make an accommodation. I don't think that's the place for that. If you sign up for that, that's what you sign up for. It's all about science. Matter of fact, it kind of shames me, not shames me, but makes me feel shamed for those people who've been through all that biology to get to be a pharmacist and know, because there's a lot of biology. You really got to go through a lot of stuff. And still to have these, you know, Iron Age beliefs, it just kind of.
Yeah, we know that we're all capable of it.
Yep.
Of seeing things so simply that way.
Well, a lot of it's this tribalism, and they're oh no, they're not tribalism, but you know it is. If you're not my kind of religion, if you're not my color, if you're not my this, you're not my that, then I'm going to discriminate you against you. I'm going to hurt you in some way. Why does it have to be hurt you? Why do they have to be that way? And you know something else I don't understand. If you got me, and I'm going to go on a rant. One of the things that doesn't get me is about how these damn conservatives, they're against abortion, but they also really kind of don't like brown people. But they also want to force the brown people to not only have no abortions, but also to not have birth protection. You can't have birth protection. You can't have abortions. Why are you outnumbering us? Why are you outnumbering us? What's going on here? It's just one of the things that blows my mind about the conservatives here in the United States. They're against brown people. They want to take away everything from them and hurt them every way they can. I don't, you know, and yet they make them, they're forcing them. You would think, the Southern Baptist people make me believe that a white group of people, our government would be okay going, you know what? We should let brown people have abortions. That'd be okay for brown people and not for white rich people. You know, I could see them doing that. That's like the whole Southern Baptist thing. If you're Southern Baptist, it's because at the time back in the day when slavery was good or bad, these bastards chose slavery. You know? So ranty Chris is past Chris. I ought to just have a show where I get on here and just kind of what's the blah, 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 blah. But this is actually about Marie. Hi, Marie.
Is it? Oh, okay. I had no idea.
All right, Marie, it's your turn. Rant. It helps if you wave your hands. That's all.
How about this? What is the most exciting thing that you're kind of you haven't yet done and you're going to do? Do you have any future plans?
I have no plans. Everything has been canceled. Everything is canceled. Actually, okay, so I'll tell you one thing. And it's something that I want to acknowledge has a lot of privilege behind it. But I was thinking yesterday about taking a couple of months off from trying so goddamn hard. Because you know, I've been self-employed for almost a year now, and I've been just working my ass off every day, all day long, hustling, working on my brands, thinking like how to, you know, different workshops I could do, different initiatives I could do to help people, different people to have on the show. It's a self-employment thing, you know, like you're never off the clock. Just like if you're in college, if you're not studying, it's because you're intentionally like taking a short break, but then it's back to studying. And my life has been like that for a really long time. And, you know, my partner and I were looking at our budget yesterday and realized that we've made a lot already in the beginning of the year. And maybe I could actually just stop trying so goddamn hard for a few months, especially during COVID-19. Trying to do anything right now kind of seems like swimming upstream. And so I am very seriously contemplating kind of taking a respite for a few months, which is going to look a little bit different than what everyone would think it might look like. But because like I'm still on the show and this is fun, but I'm not going to be fucking spending all of my time trying to get more work or secure myself financially. And like, what would it feel like to spend like a couple of weeks not worrying about being productive? What if during the day, I just read up on biology. Like I have an education that painfully needs to be remedied because I went to, a private high school. And, I did go to college and study psychology, but there's a lot of subjects that are, I'm very poorly educated on, and I've wanted to study for a long time, but just never felt like that was something that came to the top of my priorities. And I don't know, after just seeing where we are financially right now, like it feels like it would be okay to take some time off. And I feel really uncomfortable with that because I just decided that this yesterday morning that that's a possibility. And it makes me uncomfortable because I know it reeks of a lot of privilege to just choose to make COVID-19 my vacation when so many other people are gravely affected right now. And so I'm contending with some kind of like, I don't know, is it survivor's guilt or like something?
Right.
But I don't have to feel the weight of the world every second to be a good human being.
Right.
So I'm trying to, it's going to be a challenge to let myself relax and read. And that's what I was saying. I downloaded medium.com is a fantastic source for articles that just blow my mind constantly. And so yesterday night, I just got high and was just reading and reading and reading. And it was so delicious. And I have a bunch of books behind me that I buy books and then I never read them because they're more just decorative pieces that represent the topics I'm interested in, but never actually read about. So
well
these
said.
are things. Yeah. So I just I'm thinking about doing that and I feel guilty about it.
Well, Kristen in the chat wants to let you know, I don't know if you can see the chat, that you're one of the best human beings she knows. So and I have to say, between you, Dave, and Eric Murphy, and V. LaBianca, you guys bring a certain kind of, there's a similar charm y'all bring to the show, a caringness, an openness that, every time I get any of you folk on, it just changes the tone of the show. It's really, you're familiar with Eric and V?
Yeah. Oh, we're really, really close. Actually, Eric called me a couple nights ago because he's starting up. I know he called me, whatever. It's fine.
Yeah.
But
I do that too.
It's fun. It's fun being connected to these folks who are doing really big, amazing things. But he called me the other night because with his downtime, he's finally starting up this podcast he's been meaning to start up for a long time called The Atheist Podcast. I think he even bought the URL. It was out there. The domain hadn't been bought. And so he's starting his own podcast. And Neil 604, who we were talking about at the top of the show, is his first interview. And then me and Dave Warnock are going to be his second and third interview. So he and I are recording on Tuesday. And then he's going to try to get Dave once Dave is feeling better.
That's
but
awesome.
Yeah, I know what you mean though. Like, I think we all have a value of humanism in our atheism. It's not just like blanket atheism and logic and blah, blah, blah. But I think we try to be more emotionally vulnerable and nuanced. And I think if I had to guess, maybe that's what people are seeing in folks like ourselves. But I mean, you're the one that said it, so I can't tell you.
Well, there's been a lot. I want to just address some of the chat here. Let me see if I can there we go. The Eric and the other people. Matter of fact, I'd like to be on your friend's show. I missed his name. You said his name? Whose show? Who was it?
Eric Murphy's show.
No, was it Eric Murphy? No. I thought you were talking about somebody else. Oh, you were talking about being on Eric Murphy proper, not the. Oh, okay. I don't know what the hell I was thinking. I'm trying to run the show. I get distracted. Anyway,
yeah, that's fair.
I need to see about getting on Eric's show. I don't know why I thought you were talking about somebody else after you. I thought you switched. Anyway, I want to get on Eric's show and say hi. I really enjoy having him on mine. Now that he's working from home and he's doing the tech from home, of course it's bad that we have to do this, but it's good that it's an opportunity there to get to do this because they're just a lot of fun. They've been wonderful. And V, come on the show.
She is badass.
Yes.
She's a strong ass person. Or sorry, they.
They, right?
Forgetting. Yep. Sorry, the pronouns are important.
Yes, they are. I try as well. That's one of the things that you guys were talking, you two earlier were talking about LGB issues and openness in marriage and stuff like that. And I'm an older guy. I say older, 50. I'm almost 50, nearly 50, getting close to 50, from Texas. So from my West Texas background, you know, it was man and woman. You know, and
Yeah.
these folks, and if you, I mean, there's marriage, and then there, you know, some folks shack up. That's all right to shack up, but to shack up and then just sex around with a whole bunch of folk, that ain't right. That's weird. Now, that's where I'm from, you know,
Yeah.
and so it's I embrace these things. I'm a very open person in that department. Me and my wife we're not open monogamous. We're whatever you call it. We're just
Yeah, I
us.
understood.
Yes, but to each their own, and to learn to live in a world and understand that there's been a lot of changes,
Mhm.
and you know, now with things like Miss. See, I'm from Texas. The Miss I started to say Miss V. Now with V, and learning those pronouns, it was really hard. I made it through the whole show without addressing them as she.
Yeah.
I did good. It's still like a landmine I'm dancing through, but
Yeah.
it's only a landmine
it's-
if the other person on the other end is a jerk about it. And they
I
don't
would
forgive you.
challenge that. I would challenge all of that. The whole, like, if they're not a jerk about it thing, because to have your identity constantly uh
I get that.
denied, it's not going to lend you to be gracious all the time. Like, most of us don't know what it's like to have our identity completely invalidated our entire life.
Mhm.
And so when I come across folks with an identity that I don't relate to or whatever, for whatever reason, I don't ever take it personally if they get upset about, you know, a misstep that I take, because I can see the pain behind that. I can
Mhm.
see an entire life of a culture that invalidated their identity. So I don't know. I just shy away from, you know, calling people like a jerk if they have a reaction to being used the wrong pronoun, you know, like.
I get that. No, I do. There's a difference, though. Of course, the world is complicated, right? We can
Right.
agree. I've mentioned this up before. I don't remember the person's name. The woman in I think it's some kind of store, and the guy behind the counter insists on calling her sir because she was trans. She was transing and transitioning or something. I don't know exactly. But despite her informing him, listen, I want to be called this, he kept on doing it, and eventually she blew her top. Totally get that. I'm sitting here and I'm trying real hard, and I'm like, hello them, are you they, and you guys, they are doing okay, I'm sorry, she. And then I said, oh, I'm sorry, I said she. And then to keep jumping on me if I accidentally slip, that's what I'm talking about. You know, I'm trying really hard. I don't want to deal with that kind of personality. I wouldn't deal with that kind of personality anyway. Somebody who's gonna, that's kind of my point.
Yeah, and I appreciate, and I do understand that that's what you're saying. And
Yeah.
at the same time, I still do feel a lot of compassion for those folks. And I have no negative feelings at all for any kind of reactivity or lashing out that they might have because I'm not using pronouns correctly, because I can see behind it
Yeah.
where
Well,
that anger and hurt comes from.
there's certainly been a lot of.
I don't have to keep engaging with them. I don't have to be their best friend and continue to take
Oh, yeah.
that kind of reaction, but I don't take it personally, and I can see it for what it is.
Yeah, my deal is if I'm trying to be as respectful. A lot of other people don't, and here I am trying. That's all.
Mhm.
But to be honest, I've never experienced that. It's always a fear that I'll experience it, but I've never experienced it. Every time, in the one time I've met somebody who did insist on they were wonderful.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So it's a worry. I'm probably worrying about something that'll never happen. Right? It's that old thinking that I have to get over.
Well, yeah, I think one thing that us atheists need to let go, that is a residual from Christianity and it's a residual from our culture, is the fear of being wrong.
Mhm.
That's something that's really come up in my mind lately. Like, especially, I see it a lot in white men who are really trying to be supportive of, be an ally and everything, but they're so afraid to do something wrong.
Mhm.
And I think, and I'm afraid of that too. And I think it really helps to be like, you know what? I'm just going to plan on being wrong and focus my attention on how I react when it is pointed out to me that I have done something that someone doesn't like or is considered wrong or whatever, because that is something that Christianity does not talk about. Like, you can be confident to make your choices, and if the consequences are such that you did not want it that way, you can have 100% confidence in your ability to show up and to, remedy the situation the best that you can. But there's so little emphasis on our ability to clean up messes versus the emphasis to do it right in the first fucking place. I think is fucked up.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of understand, because I even if you look on my Facebook profile under my gender, it says intersex genderqueer male, because I feel like that explains me. And I've had people before tell me that's too complicated. And I'm like, you don't get to decide what I am. Biologically, I'm a little bit intersex, and I feel kind of in my mind how I think male and female. And then, but how I present and how I generally feel in the world is that I'm kind of male. But it's not, I talk about with people with them or whatever. To me, it's about compassion. When it's like when someone tells you their story of when they've been through pain, it should elicit compassion. And so I may not understand, people's pain, because I haven't had that exact experience, but it's a compassion. Instead of it focusing, like you were saying, about being wrong. Wrong to me, for me, would be focusing on me. What I try to do is focus on others. It's like, I don't like the word woke, because it's like I've reached a place where now I understand it all. No, I don't. There's a lot of things that I'm, culturally blind or encapsulated in. And I agree about not always understanding what to say about everything. But what I try to focus on is the compassion, that as soon as that a person tells me something, I want to see it through their eyes, to experience it through their feelings. And because I think that's what they really need, more than saying you're sorry, or me saying I'm sorry for making a mistake. It's more the compassion behind it. Like, if you ever had someone tell you they're sorry, but fucking good and well they're not sorry. They go,
sorry.
I'm sorry. You can't take a thing. Does that sound sorry?
Right.
Does that sound compassionate? So to me, it's I know I'm going to make a mistake. So instead of, I agree with you about worrying about it, but instead of worrying about me, I worry about, wow, what are they going through? What is it for them? And so I'm just saying, for me personally, that I already know that I'm not going to always be perfect. I mean, that's a fact of being, in reality, and in my own, mind, my own world, my own backup. I grew up in a certain place, it's different experiences, but it's the compassion, I think, that's the issue. And so to me, that's the when, like you said, atheism, that's when my humanism comes in and goes, how can I be better, for them? And sometimes it's just being compassionate.
Yeah. Well, in their particular case, in most of their cases, they faced, like Marie was saying, they faced so much oppression, for forever, really, forever. And now, again, I'm a great example. I didn't even know they existed. When I was a kid, there was this thing called a hermaphrodite. That's what you were either a man or a woman or hermaphrodite. Yeah. Well, yeah, I know, but that's all we knew back then. You're sitting there describing yourself as I'm X, Y, and Z, and to my brain, I'm like, I don't know what these things mean. And I understand what you say whenever you say other people say, hey, that's too complicated. However, somebody who understands the nature of sexuality and what all these things mean, that's a perfect label. It's wonderful. It explains everything. And that's where I'm from the old and I'm working to become part of the new and understand these things. And it's hard on the brain sometimes. I have to tell myself, no, wait a second, jackass. That's okay. Let them do whatever the hell they want. Don't be that way. Don't be that jackass, because it's knee-jerk reaction. Look at those damn kids. Wait.
I've sworn up and down I do not want to be that old person that is fighting what the young people are revealing. I've sworn I'm not going to be that person. If I recognize it in myself, I'm going to push so goddamn hard against it. Like, that is the older type of person that I want to be.
And
I'm not young. I'm 48. I think 48, 49.
I have to ask somebody. I'm the same way.
I forget. Like, how old am I again?
Yeah. Well, I see the younger generation is often the more progressive generation. The older generations are often the more fuddy-duddy, stuck in their ways. Some of us make it to the older generation and keep the flexible, open mind about,
Yeah.
but not enough of us apparently. And that they are our future leaders. Yeah, every generation complains about it. These damn kids are just lazy. Everyone. My dad's kids complained about it. My dad's dad, the golden generation, what do they call them, the World War II group, their parents said the same damn thing about them, and yet they were the greatest generation ever. There's some out there going, yeah, that Billy, he lets his hair grow where it touches his ears. You remember how they used to be, and that's bad, and yeah, it's just every year, so these people coming out, the millennials, it's the millennials are not kids anymore. Aren't you a millennial?
I'm a millennial.
Yeah, you're a millennial. They're old enough to do weird things like vote and rent cars. Now we've got this younger generation. What's it called? I don't know what they're generation. What's the youngest? Anyway, these new little brats. It's just well, see, yes, lots of millennials out there. Yeah, so my daughter,
like, I'm sick of that millennial bullshit.
Right.
This intergenerational fighting is
bullshit.
It's invalidating to humanity.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we are all human, whether I was born 10 years ago or whether I was, and we're not all the same. It's just another excuse that's more widely accepted to just make sweeping generalizations about an entire category of people.
Truth.
Except it's not looked down upon as much because it's not racism, but it's good-natured ribbing of the older folks to the younger folks, and it's seen as natural, and it's in movies. It's played upon where and I'm sick of it. Like, we're all at different developmental stages, and we all went through different kinds of cultures growing up and shit, but we're still fucking human and have more in common than we don't.
That's
and
right.
I'm just so tired of it. And everyone in my peer group, whatever, leans into it too. They the whole like, okay, boomer thing.
Right.
Like, and then just like fighting back invisible voices who criticize us for being millennials. I'm like, I don't understand it.
Well, there is this thing to where, and I've seen it over and over again, where they use the term millennial like to put that group down as though you're not old enough or responsible enough. Look at the Tide Pod. You want to see millennials, you think Tide Pods, but actually it wasn't, was it? It wasn't. Millennial actually stopped before the Tide Pod fad, and it was the teens who were doing it. So it's this newer, it wasn't even them, but to refer to the millennials as the group, well, then you're downplaying their voice. And the millennials really have something to say.
What do you want to believe about a generation? What do you want to believe? What do you think will be more productive? Believing that an entire fucking generation cares nothing about anyone else and has no social skills? Does that make you feel good inside to dismiss an entire generation?
No.
Or do you embrace a nuanced view where if we had perfect statistics of that Tide Pod phenomenon, you'd take the 100% of a generation and you'd have this little group here, you write them a fucking article, it goes nuts, everyone's, oh, those millennials are blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, holy shit, dude. Like, it's all about those headlines. And this is something that stuck out to me ever since I graduated from psychology and got my BA, and that statistics are so fucking important, and everything that we're getting worked up about is from headlines or from like these ideas that we take away from studies when we don't know how to read studies, or we don't know how to set up studies with significant results. And instead we're just ranting around, people being this way and that way. And it creates so much stress, and it reinforces the idea that I'm okay and no one else is okay. And that's bullshit, because we're all okay and not okay. We're just here. And I know Kristen's really excited that I'm ranting over here, but just pisses me off, this like false division, this false sense that I'm more human than you are, I'm smarter than you are, the whole criticizing of Christians being dumb. Like, it just fucking drives me insane. And I know that there's some legitimate people who are harmful and not thinking very critically, but if you just start pulling apart their genetics, you start pulling apart their history, their generation, their family, their church. Like, I know that we're not all tabula rasa when we're born. Like, we're not just like all from scratch, but like, we need to see each other more holistically. and not better, but just different contributions to our lives that have made us what we are, and that we're all full of potential to become even better and greater. And that is why I will not start a rant on the prison reform, but that is very relevant to that. Like believing that people can change and be restored instead of just penalizing them and locking them up in a cell. Like,
well, we penalize and lock people up in a cell for money. We do it for money.
Yeah.
Yeah. In our country, we do it. We sell people. And we actually make contracts with our state government and our federal government to imprison people for money. And the more people we can get in there, the more money we make. You know, so if you wanted to go off on the prison system and how it needs to change, I am totally down with that. Of course, what happened to the whole notion of rehabilitation when it came to that? That was just it's just a word. It's just a word. There's
punishing them.
Yeah.
Do you really think that locking someone up in a cage, like, and I said this on Twitter the other day, I'm like, so you've all been stuck inside your houses for 2 weeks. Do you feel like you've become a better person yet? No. Reconsider prison reform. Like,
absolutely.
I also have a BA in psychology.
Oh yeah.
And, to me, in general, I think that our whole prison system is completely wrong. It should actually be, to me, a mental health issue. To me, but most, if you look at most reasons why people do crime, you know, they don't have like great emotional, backgrounds doing it. A lot of times they're under all kinds of, either biopsychosocial, motivations. So it's not like it's just a simple thing. You did a crime, you should do a thing. And to me, also, we should be thinking about recidivism, because, I mean, we do want to put people back in society, right? We do want them to be back in society in a better, not just the same or worse. And so to me, just housing people is not the way to do things. We should be doing things that help them with education, that help them with sports, that help them, like get them physically, mentally, and emotionally better.
Yeah.
And if we did that and then put them out, how much, better would society be?
Yeah, and this notion that we can't afford such things is just absolute nonsense. Well, if there's nothing the coronavirus has taught me, if there's one thing, it's that the government and the Federal Reserve have money. They've got money. They could have wiped out world hunger. They could have done so many things several times over with the money they've dropped into our economy. That money was there a year ago, right? It was there 2 years ago. They could have done those things. The programs that they're doing now, they could have done, and yet they didn't. They will, in our country, we'll sit there and step over starving people in the street. The only reason why they care about the coronavirus is because it goes across these borders. They got to shut it down before it gets the rich people. And you watch, it's going to ravage the poor. I've been saying it's going to destroy our nation financially. They're saying, oh, no, come on. If it's virus related, we'll treat you for free. And I saw an article. I was like, that's a bunch of bullshit. I saw an article just yesterday where, they went down there and the shot for the coronavirus was free, but the emergency room visit is crazy expensive, right? It's just our medical system is it's like highway robbery. If you get sick with anything, it's financially devastating. Go get an MRI and not have insurance. You'll find out what devastating is, And so the brown people and the poor people, forgive me, I'm not racist. You know why I keep bringing the brown people up? Because that's a specific target of the right.
People of color, if
people
that
of
feels
color.
better.
I'm just saying that pointing them out as a target of the other people. That's what I'm trying to say. So people of color, these targets of poor people, their targets are going to be so harmed by this. But that's the reason why they're dumping all this money into it, is because it's the one thing that they can't get away from. If it was only hurting brown people and poor people, people of color and poor people, then our government would not have dumped the $2.4 trillion into the, now that's the 2.4 trillion that our government is dumping back into our people. That's not counting the 1 point something trillion dollars that the Fed dumped into the stock market. We're talking a lot of money. They could have done a lot of things with this money, and it is sit there this whole time. My rant's over.
And I was going to make a comment too about money. You have these people that are poor. They can't buy 2 months of food.
They can't.
A lot of these people that are rich go out to the stores, like you said, and they buy everything. Then what's left is the most expensive meat, the most expensive whatever. And so then they can't get those. So they end up with what? Nothing? I mean, begging for food. So I mean, it's like I only have like maybe 2 weeks of food. I didn't buy 2 months because I don't want to contribute to this hoarding mentality, especially taking things like, let's say, cup of noodles or whatever. You know, that's something that a person who is low in income would get, but they've all gone. Those are the first things gone. So I mean, I think this coronavirus has hit the poor in a way that even for shopping and the lack of money and the lack of being able to. It's sad.
Yeah. I've got my own little. I don't. There are things that are coming up. Like the elections. How are we going to do the elections if everybody's the conservatives are already talking about not letting us do it digitally, not letting us remote from our phones or however we do it. They want to do everything they can. These are the other fallouts that will be coming from this. We'll have election issues. I've already been preaching that thing. I don't want it to happen, but we've got all these changes that are coming. Yeah, I know. I got my new microphone. It's kind of cool.
It's very pretty.
It's very, thank you. It's very pretty. It's shiny. I talk to it. I do, actually. Literally.
Checks out.
But the good thing is there's already stuff set up for transitions of government. Yeah. So there's already a rule that on January 20th, the old president is gone, period. I mean, there's no like extension. He's gone. And then what happens is it goes to the House. The Speaker of the House becomes, in a sense, a temporary president. And then the House votes on a president. And then the Senate votes on a vice president. And then one of those, let's say the House doesn't figure it out, if the Senate gets a vice president, that vice president then becomes president. So there's already a total. So I know people are afraid, and they're afraid that somehow Trump's going to make this where he never leaves. But if they follow the Constitution, that shouldn't happen.
Why would they start doing that now?
But of course,
and all it takes
is a big respecter of the Constitution.
Yeah, all it takes is political majority in both the House and Senate, and they can change those rules. All of those rules, and they're not above doing it. We've seen them do it. So, he's already referred to himself as a wartime president on multiple occasions because of the virus. And I could see them trying to use wartime rules to set aside certain other things. Would not surprise me a bit.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just saying.
It wouldn't surprise me. I'm just saying that it would be violating the Constitution. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
Well, he already shat all over the Constitution. They had an impeachment trial to do it, and the entire conservatives lined up behind him and didn't want any evidence. They didn't want any speakers. They didn't want this. They didn't want that. They voted it down. They don't care what he does. Why would they start caring whenever he starts trying to rob the election?
But the first amount of power for the government in a transition is actually the House. The Democrats run the House. So I don't know how
for now.
Well, yeah, for now. True.
Right. My point.
They don't get votes.
Right. As long as we can keep them out, that's true. I'm all about that. It's whenever they get the majority on both sides.
Yeah, folks in the comments are talking about mail-in ballots. I don't know what the rules are for every state, but ever since I learned that you could do absentee without actually being like not in your state, I've always been doing that just to like avoid having to stand in crowds and stuff.
We do that too.
If your state has the option to vote absentee without cause or whatever, I would highly suggest looking into getting ballots sent to you, because that's how we did caucusing or voting for the primaries for the presidential race. And it's so much easier and it's less stressful.
Absolutely.
And you can drop it right back off at your city hall when you're done. And it's not digital for sure, but it is in alignment with managing COVID-19.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
it is a step. Me and the wife, that's how we vote.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. Now we've got a lot of issues about the mail-in. Well, here's kind of to the point though. We can do all of our banking on our phones. The technology is there to be secure enough to do the voting on our phones or in other fashion. We really should be able to do that. The only reason why they would fight that is because the more people that are allowed to vote, the less likely conservatives are to win. And they fight. That's my notion anyway. I didn't want to go that direction, but we did.
Well, Trump about said that in the interview.
Yeah.
That if there's more, voting is easier, there's less likely that conservatives will win ever again, is what he said.
Yeah. Well, we often have Australians on our show, and they talk about how down there it's mandatory elections. So you have to vote, mandatory voting. And whenever you do that and you make it mandatory voting, then the percentage goes back to the middle. You don't have as many far groups there, based on the thing. So, well, you know what, guys, I thank you for being on the show. We've actually been past the hour for quite a while now. I like to try to let them run, especially if folks are having a good time. And you're such an awesome guest, Marie. You're wonderful.
Thank you.
And then, of course, the cat, Damien's cat.
Yeah.
Yes. We had extra spare hosts. So thank you both. Thank you again, Damien, for joining me on the show today. It's Friday. Yay.
Friday,
for whatever
Friday. Gonna get down on Friday.
Now, I know you don't smoke weed. How's it go? But it's Friday. And you ain't got no job and you ain't got shit to do. Sorry. It's a quote from the movie Friday.
Where did you just go, Chris?
I just tried. Yeah. Well, go watch the movie Friday. It's a wonderful movie.
Oh.
Chris, it's wonderful. Ice Cube and Chris Tucker. Chris something. Anyway, all right, guys. Thank you very much for being on the show. Thank you for everybody in the chat who is on the show and putting up with my daily. You could. Epileptic Skeptic asked, couldn't you snatch someone else's phone and vote on their behalf? Can you snatch someone else's phone and get into their bank account? Well, you probably can, but you got to have X, Y, and Z to do it. You know, my phone actually takes a picture of my face, or you could have a thumbprint. All these things are possible. There's protections right now there where we could vote from our phone. Just saying.
Oh, yeah, digital democracy, no problem.
Yeah, I mean, well, we've got this ancient way we do it now, based on the reason why it's the way it is because whenever they set it all up, you couldn't go across the country in one day. You know, you had to ride a horse from this place over to this place to tell what the results were, and we've moved beyond that. We need to move beyond that. Sorry. More rant. That rant was free.
I liked all the gestures that came with it.
Yeah, I talked.
And then you write it.
You guys are awesome. Thank you. Thank you for everybody in the chat. Y'all are wonderful. I will have Sci-Fi Saturday tomorrow. It will be Dr. David Kyle Johnson, the philosopher from King's College. He will be on my show tomorrow specifically to talk with me about Orville. Also, the Orville.
Not Oral? Orville?
The Orville.
Like as in Seth, what's his face?
Yes, the TV show. Yeah.
It's the Orville. It's the Orville.
So he's big into the Orville. He does King's College classes where he teaches, not King's College, it's a great courses online. And he does philosophy where he mixes philosophy and science fiction. And he's coming out with a new book talking about the philosophy of the Orville and other science fiction shows. And he has sent me the first chapter, which is about the Orville. I've seen the Orville now. I hadn't seen it whenever he was on the show before. And now I'm going to read that chapter. And tomorrow he and I are going to Orville out on the show. So anybody who wants to join us should join us. So
that's kind of cool. I've seen that show. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. So, I'm just saying now tomorrow, the Saturday show starts at 11 a.m. Eastern. I don't know if that's crazy early for you. Is that crazy early for you, Marie?
10? No. Hi, Kitty.
Yeah. So if you were to decide you wanted to actually be a co-host on the show tomorrow with me and Dr. David Kyle, I would allow you to co-host if you have the opportunity to let me know afterwards, and we'll
I'll let you know.
Because the Orville. Yes. Yeah. But I just dropped you. Yeah. Yes. So we recently watched it. Loved it. It was great. So that's what we're going to do tomorrow. It's going to be a lot of fun. So thank you all.
Do you ever do a show when you're high?
Every show. What are you talking about? What do you mean?
Because I'm high right now.
Oops.
I don't normally talk about it on the show. I have anxieties that I deal with. Don't judge. We don't judge. Don't judge.
No. I'm just saying, do I get to smoke if I go on?
Oh, well, I never do it on the show. I don't know what the rules are about that with YouTube. I don't know if they frown on that or not. I've never done it.
They don't know. They don't know if it's a nicotine vape.
Well, that's right. They don't know. Yeah. I mean, if you sit there going, man, this is some great shit. Yeah, they probably know.
Pot.
Right. Well, I mean, yesterday, Jim, for extra show for those of you who are watching. Yesterday, Jim Majors, my co-host, he was smoking something. He was using Bible pages. It was pot. I didn't know if it was pot or if it was a cigarette. I'm running the show. Half the time I don't know what the hell's going on. But so I don't know what the rules are as far as blah and blah and blah. But I don't see why you certainly can do whatever you want to. I mean, I encourage to wake and bake. It's anxiety medicine. I mean, it's legal
in a lot of places anyway.
Well, it's legal in my state. So it doesn't matter. We even have the card, El Cardo. So it's not that. Yeah. I play a cello
Oh, that's
too.
nice.
There. I play the cello. I taught myself how to play the cello on weed. I taught myself how to play the piano on weed. I wrote 2 books on weed. Don't judge.
No, I'm not judging. You're cooler now. This is very cool.
Yeah, I know.
I've written philosophy stuff on high as hell.
Yeah. So yeah, we're
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's trippy as fuck. And you wake up the next day and you're not like, oh my God, I was so delusional. You're like, wow, my life has been enhanced. Like you never think that like with a hangover from beer the next day.
Oh yeah, I've done my share of drinking back in the day, my 20s. I didn't get a hangover really until I hit my 30s, but alcohol is just so hard on the body. But weed is natural. It's from God.
I mean, my dad was once like, well, what if this takes years off of your life? And I'm like, do you know what it's like to live with a panic disorder?
Yeah.
Do you know what kind of a difference pot makes? I will give you those 10 years if like the 70 can be better.
Well, if anything, I would think, forgive me for saying without any kind of medical knowledge, I would think that those 10 years would be better because when you're under anxiety and you're under stress, it's like having an engine that's running as hard as it can. It's stressing. If it takes that stress off of you, that I can't see why that's a bad thing. Now, there are, especially if you smoke the flower, there are carcinogens that you are partaking in, but there's other ways of getting it that you can avoid those things and making it healthier. So I don't see, especially people who deal with anxiety, as a person who I know very much what anxiety is all about. My passions force me into situations that, like, I love to do the notion of doing theater, but I am terrified of public speaking. How do you get over that? You know, pot. Now I run in a morning show. You should have seen me before the show, whenever I first started the show, even with my medicine. Before I started getting co-hosts, when I first started the show, because of the panic inside me, I'd be sitting there waiting for the show to start. The minutes are ticking down. I'd watch that little clock. I would get anxious. It helps. It's so much better for a person.
Yeah.
And there's also people out there who have trouble sleeping or have abuse issues. So I am very pro cannabis. I even prefer to call it cannabis because the marijuana term is a term used by the white man to vilify the cannabis. That was kind of the purpose. That's why it was, instead of blah 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 blah. So yeah, there's a lot of reasons. Of course, I'm from West Texas. So West Texas, growing up in my teens and 20s, I mean, that was, if the cops caught you with it, it was very severe. It was very hush hush,
Yeah.
And now it's nothing. But I mean, I've partaketh since I was, I think, regularly on the regular since I was like 24.
Oh, wow.
I'm talking on, a fairly regular, consistent basis. So I am familiar. These kids come over like, I'm a big pothead. I'm like, you don't know shit. Get away with me with you.
Oh, yes. No, I love pot. And it's so good for my mental health too.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's helped me, like, I never believed it was true because I read all the propaganda on all this, on drugs and stuff. And I grew up on DARE, but like, it's helped me deal with so much of my trauma. And it's helped me feel like a part of something of the world. Like, when you're high, you can feel the whole world. You can feel all of humanity, and not in like a spiritual way, like, but for like legit, you're like, I'm not the only human being here. And it's awakened me to more humanism, I think.
Yeah.
And it changes how I behaved. And beer has never done that for me. Like cannabis has been so good for me, and we need to release everyone who's in prison from pot right now if we could. But I'm not in charge, but I don't want to be another privileged white person who's doing pot on the down low while people of color are still incarcerated for it from years ago.
There's a couple of things real quick. Julie the Voice wants to ask, do I find pot stronger now than it used to be? Not really. I mean, back in the day we had dirt weed and we had high grade. There was dirt weed and high grade. Nowadays we still got dirt weed. You can still find dirt weed occasional places. You get the high grade from the medicine store. It's sometimes some of it seems like it's just, back in the day you didn't have access to high grade. Now you have access to more. It's like it's hard to find dirt weed to where high grade is everywhere. And again, like we're talking about the back in the day with the dirt weed and stuff like that, people were selling dirt weed. And now if they got caught there, you're talking about people of color, incarcerations, those kind of things. And now we got these rich white people trying to sell it. That for me too is a problem. You know, our country is fucked up on many levels. This is one
It's
of the
always
best
going to be,
medicines. Yeah.
you know, like, this is another rant that I've got. Last year was really tough for my partner, and he kept on being like, fuck 2019 can die in a fire, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'd be careful about saying shit like that, because 2020 will not be any better. And as soon as 2020 sucks, you're going to be thinking about 2021. So fuck your
Right.
arbitrary years and figure out your day and what
Right.
you're going to do today, and fuck these years. Because I was right, because I'm going to always be right, because humanity's fucked up and the earth is fucked up, and fucked up shit's going to happen. And so, of course, there was a pandemic. Of course, shit's happening. And so what are we going to do? Light 2020 on fire too? Or are we just going to fucking show up today, whether it's 2020 or 2021 or whatever arbitrary year we decided that it's going to be because of some weird ass calendar that white people made? And we're just going to deal with today.
Yeah. Well, you know, we're in April and I'm already like, oh, 2020, stop kicking my ass. Stop kicking my ass. You know, it's just,
it's just today. Like, I think if we can live in the moment and accept what is, like, it's going to reduce our stress a lot. I mean, like, not to not fight against anything, but like, this is what is. Right. And I don't need to throw away an entire period of time mentally.
Yeah.
And burn it all on fire, because life is still so short. Even if you're alive during a pandemic, what are you going to do with the pandemic?
Yeah. Well, real quick, have any of us ever tried Jay and Silent Bob's weed? I have not. I've never even heard of it, but I've heard of it. I've heard of a whole bunch of different kinds. Well, in my case, since we're going to talk about, if you don't mind going back to the weed thing, I have certain ones that just trash my memory. They just kill my memory. The dirt weed is the weed that's not high grade. It's just whatever you get. It's just crap weed. I refer to that. We got another word for it. Swag weed is what we've always called it. I don't know if any of y'all from it. I'm just going on the comments. Weed? But yeah, with some of the newer stuff that we get from the place, like the Larry OG or something like that, I'll be, wait, what was I talking about? I mean, literally in the middle of a sentence, I've done that. Well, you know, sometimes we trade off. We actually get some from the place, and it's usually indica. And I'm like, and then it screws up my memory. So I try to avoid doing any of the good, decent stuff.
Yeah.
Before a show.
Just because you know, to be sativa and indica. Sativa to me is more the head buzz, and you can't think, which to me is good for me when you know, you're feeling kind of depressed or whatever, because it kind of like, you know, you feel like kind of like soda poppy. Whoa, your head feels, laugh a lot, you know. But then the indica to me is more of the body, you know, high and stuff. And I have pain, you know, in my foot and in my tailbone, and so smoking indica, you know, helps alleviate the pain. Makes me, even if I feel the pain, it's like I don't care as much.
Yeah.
I can focus on other things else, like, you know, what color the wall is, you know.
Right.
Well, you know, if you don't mind, I mean, if I got you, if you got to run, let me know. But I would like to ask, what got you into it? You used to be the uber religious person. At what point, and was it a mind blowing experience?
I hated the first time I did it.
Did you? Okay.
It's taken me a while, you know, and it was the same thing with alcohol, because I was raised in a way to, I mean, drugs were absolutely off the table. It doesn't matter how old you are. They're evil. Anyone who does them hates themselves, hates their life, wants to throw everything away, is lazy, has no value for themselves. And so drugs were absolutely off the table. I deconverted, and even still, there was a lot of stigma around drugs. You know, just because you deconvert doesn't mean your entire education about the world is remedied. There's a lot of work that has to be done about that. And that's my emphasis, the post-religious experience and how to deconstruct the stuff you're still holding on to. So I was still really holding a lot of misinformed information about drugs. And I tried pot for the first time in 2015 or 14. I flew out to Seattle when it was legal, and I tried an edible with my brother and sister and brother and sister-in-law and my partner, and I had a terrible time because it was my first time doing it. I didn't know what to expect. It was 5 milligrams of THC, which I was told is a good dose. But I have really strong reactions to THC, which are really, really, they feel good. But for the first time, that was way too much for me. And it was very anxiety inducing. And then I was in a large or a loud place. with people I didn't know. I mean, I know my brother very well, but we're not super close. So it didn't feel emotionally super safe to be feeling that way. So I had a bad first trip. It was a bad trip. And I just was like, you know what? That's fine. I'm not into it. But eventually we kind of tried it out again. And I started out really slowly, like very, very little, trying to figure it out. And just over like a year or two, I finally have kind of figured it out and fucking love it. And like I said, I know I even feel the stigma inside myself. I feel internalized stigma even as I'm talking about cannabis right now, because I've seen so many people talking about cannabis in the past when I've judged them as being just, I don't know, I just kind of discarded them. Like they're just shitty people who want to escape the real world. But that I actually had no experience with what cannabis actually felt like.
Really?
But I was so ready to judge them.
Yeah.
But finally kind of getting a hang of pot and kind of figuring out how to float through it and kind of sometimes even do therapeutic work with it, and to realize how much it can change you as a person and open your eyes to things that you didn't see before has really, really helped. I once had a dissociative experience after doing pot one time because I got way too in my head and I started seeing my brain from like inside my head. And it was way too like, what's the word for it? Like I felt like a homunculus. Like I was actually like a little homunculus sitting in my brain, and it was too disassociative for me. And it kind of like broke my brain for 2 days. And I just had a dissociative experience, but it was terrible. I hated that. But in the end, like it taught me a lot. Like I don't think about consciousness the same way before. It's helped me heal my idea of like a soul or being a spirit or being something dualistic. I now realize that everything that I think that is me is just I don't know. It's just consciousness. It's something purely biological and just neurons. And it's nothing, it's very complicated for sure, but it's absolutely biological. There's nothing spiritual about it. And you can manipulate it with drugs, and you can see it more clearly when you are high, that is what it is. And so it's only reinforced my sense that there is no God and that I, in my mind, is all that there is. And it's made my mind a safer place to be, because now I know it's just me and it's just my mind, and I'm just a Homo sapien, and I eat bananas and like run around shitting and fucking like any other animal. And like, there's nothing special about me. I don't have to perform. Like this is all cannabis related revelations, just being okay with myself finally, because fuck, I'm just a human. I don't have to meet all these fucking insane standards anymore, which is something I was still holding on to even after religion, you know? So I like cannabis a lot.
Do you like cannabis? I'm just checking.
A lot.
Damien, what was what got you into it? What was your experience, if you don't mind telling us?
Well, I mean, what I first did it was I actually at 14 or 15 was my first.
Because you were religious for a long time too, yeah.
I was religious, but I was also a possessed with demons religious. I mean, I felt that I was. I thought that I was possessed with demons. I did drugs, which my mom said let demons into you, and I liked sex, so that put demons into me. So I was like, I guess a backslidden Christian till about maybe 17 or 18. In a sense, and then because I got sober at drugs and alcohol, I stayed sober. And actually, it's only been I think 5 years that I've done pot again.
Really?
But it had to do with taking Advil and stuff for my pain, and I started feeling like woozy from the Advil, and I was taking like 4 Advil at a time. And the doctor's like, "Oh no, don't do that! You're gonna kill yourself.
It'll trash your organs."
And so I started doing. At first, I did Tylenol and Advil, like kind of back and forth. But it's just taking so much pills all the time. And I just said, you know what? What the fuck am I doing? I mean, I don't think pot is a big deal. I was more worried about alcohol because I'm an alcoholic, and crack. Those were my like life destroying things, because I did crack at 15, and by 17, I already had at 15 and 14, I had my heart stopped from crack. And then at 17, I had my liver failure from alcohol. I had alcoholic hepatitis, basically, which is basically just drank so much for a long period of time, you almost die.
Yeah.
It's almost like alcohol poisoning people can do in a moment. But if you do it like a little bit longer, that's what I had. Just massive drinking. And I got back in. Well, the weeds help now because before I was worried about doing weed and ending up like a gateway drug in a sense, back to crack and alcohol. But that hasn't been the case. I've now done weed for, like I said, probably about 5 years, and I have still not drank. I have not drank since January 24th, 1989. It's the last time I took alcohol.
Wow.
Yeah.
Way to go,
so
you.
17. Well, I mean, I don't want to. I had my liver failing from alcohol at 17.
Yeah,
that's like
too much.
Crazy shit. They're like, what the, So it really, I was scared, but then I was like, I don't think it is. I don't believe the like you said, the propaganda that it's a gateway drug. That if you smoke pot, I'm gonna end up back in crack.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah.
So, but I was a little bit worried at first. I first took pills for like medical. It was THC pills and Washington State.
Yeah.
And I was fine with the pills. But what happened is the state of Washington decided to make it legal. Well, they didn't keep medical. They just said, okay, everything now is not medical, which actually was worse because I used to, like you said about taking, edibles. Dude, I have way overdosed on edibles. and I'm not talking about 5%. I'm talking like 100 milligrams or 150 milligrams. And I was like,
ring your bell.
I took my shirt off. I'm like sweating and I'm feeling nauseous and my heart is going. I was like, oh, I feel like I'm gonna die.
Oh my God.
Yeah, sounds rough.
But it made me a little scared of eating. But I did it with tinctures, like just with the liquid, squeeze it right in my mouth.
I've tried those a time or two.
I'm not really big on doing that anymore. But I mean, because you can overdose like at a heartbeat. But what's good though is once again not believing propaganda. I didn't go to the hospital. I didn't because I know even though it feels like I'm gonna die, I'm not really gonna die. It's
just feels that way.
Pot doesn't do that. So I overdosed the shit out of myself, but it actually. So I agree that there's way too much propaganda about pot. It's so dangerous. So, dude, I overdosed. I overdosed on a hell of a lot, and it didn't do anything. And more than one time, but that was the worst. That first time, whoa.
Yeah. I'm almost curious if it is true that it is a gateway drug because now there's more stuff that I want to try. Like I've heard, I'm open to it now because I'm like, well, is cocaine so bad? Are shrooms so bad? And I've asked, and I have friends now in my life who do a lot of drugs actually. And I've got a friend who does cocaine maybe a couple times a year or something. And I've talked to him and like, it's just like, I don't know. He describes it as just something kind of, it's just Ritalin or something, but really, really strong. And he uses it, intermittently, and like, it's not destroying his life and he's not living in a crack house or anything and shrooms, sound like a trip. They sound like something I would really like. Cause I've told people about what it feels like when I'm high and they're like, yeah, your mind is very, I don't know what they say, very prone to having psychedelic like hallucinations or whatever. Cause I have really good trips. And so I'm very much, very, very interested in trying shrooms for the first time.
I think some of it depends on the personality of the person. Yeah. Like True Tech says in the comments, once or twice a year, that's probably not bad, but it's the people who do it 2 or 3 times a day and their annual cost is $50,000, and they can't, it depends on the person. Now with shrooms, something that's gotten my attention of late, well, I say of late, it was last year, was the notion of microdosing shrooms, so you don't get any hallucinogenic effect, but it heightens your awareness and helps you with focus because focus is one of my problems. So I've thought about doing those things, but like the other ones, I heard it one time, there was a 30-year study done with meth users and not a single one of the study participants survived the study, the 30 years as a meth user. They all died, So there are some drugs out there that, you don't have to get a lot of experience with to know that they're really bad. Ask a medical professional how many cocaine addicts they have. You don't really have those kind of problems with weed, but you do have cocaine does damage. There's more to consider with it than there is with with the marijuana. Now, real quick, my beginning experience with it, I don't know if occasionally, every now and then, I got a friend, his name is Anthony Aragon, will pop in and he'll watch. It's been once or twice. When I was 16, he got me, we were walking down our street like 2:00 in the morning, out running around. We shouldn't have been. I was like 13. And he gave me a little joint. Well, he'd been in trouble. I was always the good kid. And I wanted to, I was like, you know what? Let me see why you do this marijuana thing. Let me experience it with you. So he gave me a little hit of his little roach, couple hits. Well, sometimes marijuana is relaxing. Other times it'll bring out the paranoia in you, depending on the circumstances and the type of marijuana. Well, the circumstances is 2:00 in the morning. We were kids walking around the street, and we should have been. So I was paranoid. Every car was, is that a cop? Is that a cop? So that was my first experience with it. A couple years later, I was hanging out with my older brother and his wife, and they're like, "Do you want some of this?" I'm like, "Nah, I don't know." And they're like, "Yeah, it's all right. It'd be okay." So he was going to go out of town. They were getting ready to go to bed. So they give me, I took 2 hits off this little joint, and then I'm sitting there watching the TV, and they go to bed, and I'm like, I don't feel anything, And then I looked over towards the kitchen, and the room seemed to follow. And I looked back at the TV. I'm like, what the fuck? And that was and so for a few years there, I'd do it. And, it was out West Texas. Again, it was dirt weed. So after you got used to it, it was real crap and hard to get high. And I kind of give it up. And then I was, like I said, 24, 25, I started living in Albuquerque, dating this girl, and she did the marijuana. And I started doing the marijuana, and I was doing it to be with her. At that point, I was a responsible adult. And I was doing it when she'd come over, and I'd get it. I had a little tray, I kept it on, but I only did it when she'd come over. And I knew I had lost the battle whenever she wasn't there, and I'm sliding that tray out from under the couch. And it's been a romance ever since. Intentional memory abuse. It's like a green cloud of love.
Doesn't need to be.
It doesn't need to be, but it's fun. It's it's actually therapeutic. I know an individual who was really having a very difficult time in their life because they could not sleep, and they'd been prescribed these many things, and those many things either made them sleep too hard, or the pharmaceuticals. It was really horrible. And then finally hanging out with me and got to doing some cannabis, and actually got some sleep. And then that person's therapist had been trying to get them to do the cannabis, and they wouldn't do the cannabis. And now, after trying it with me, was able to get the sleep. And for years now, has been getting good sleep because of complete world changer,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, some people in the comments have said that, I did it once, I fucking hated it. And that's so fair. I know that we're harping on how wonderful it is, but it's not for everyone. I've heard a lot of people say no matter how and when or how much I try, I just fucking hate it. And all of our cognition and our neurochemistry is different, and our emotional states of being are different. And so whatever works for you, but I will personally sing of its praises.
Absolutely.
And I mean, and especially when I even talk to other people in my life who use pot, no one ever seems to experience it the same way as I do too. So I almost feel like I especially like it because of how I feel doing it, because it's really, really healing. I'm not even fucking around. It's really, really good for trauma.
Absolutely.
I've gone in, I've almost done my own EMDR in a way. I've gone into past memories that were not safe for me to go into while high, and was able to sit there and just kind of watch them and notice them with a non-escalated frame of mind, and kind of see what was happening and find nuances and new understandings of things. And it's nothing spiritual or magical, or it's just all neurochemistry.
Absolutely.
And I fucking love it. And everyone else in my life just does it for fun. But whenever I get high, I end up understanding the meaning of life. And so it's really fun for me. And I like finding people who experience similar things while they're high. But most people seem to do it just for fun.
Well, we're talking about some people not reacting well. So whenever I was at 18, shortly after that experience, I kept doing it with my brother, my older brother. Well, my twin brother came over, and he tried it, and he sat there on the couch for a few minutes, and then he got up. Well, he didn't get up. He just kind of slid off the couch, crawled partway down to the bathroom. It's a trailer house, right? So it's got this long hall to the bathroom, laid there halfway to the bathroom for a while. Then he finally finished his crawl to the bathroom, threw up in the bathroom, and he's never touched weed since. He'll tell you now that even if he smells a whiff of it, just a whiff of it makes him nauseous. And there's Neil. I told you he would come out sooner. Neil, you need to get this lady on your show.
Oh, he knows. He
yeah.
knows who I am.
Yeah. You need to get her on your show.
You
Mucho
need to go back
faster.
and watch this whole show. Neil, I heard that you were on the first episode of Eric's new podcast. That's pretty cool. I'm going to be on like the second, so like whatever, it's fine.
Epileptic Skeptic asked if I've ever met a Christian who is obsessed with weed. I want to say this. I've been in Albuquerque. Anytime I've been in Albuquerque for years, I'm talking 20 years. My dealer has always been a Christian. One guy, same guy the whole time. Friend of mine, love him to death. Christian, big time pothead. There's not an issue there. That's because Jesus made this. Even I can agree. God made this weed for us. So,
but if they see it that way, why don't they see sex that way?
That's complicated.
Can
but
you
you're
have
right.
pot only once you marry it? Like, why?
There you go. Well, not
It's
everything
just
that's natural is good
pleasure,
for
right?
you. That's right. Well, female pleasure as well. We, as a religious order, religion from the very beginning of the book of the Bible, it oppresses women from the very beginning. It starts out, you're not equal, you're a helper, and then you go from being a helper to a servant in the Bible officially. There's no, and sex is pleasurable for women. And therefore it's a way of keeping women down. I'm just kind of going there. Sorry, I didn't mean to go there, but we went there.
Hey, I'm burning it down with you. So
yeah, bitches. Not you bitches, the other bitches.
I love your enthusiasm.
Thank you. All right, guys. It's been almost 2 hours now. I'm going to wrap it up and let y'all get on with your lives. I very much appreciate you joining me. Thank you, Damien, for co-hosting with me. We went through all this earlier. Thank you, Marie, once again for joining me. Thank you to everybody in the stream who showed up. Neil is there again. Get with her, Neil. Thank you for that. And everybody, you stay safe. Have a wonderful weekend. Don't stay away from the cooties. I will see you tomorrow for Sci-Fi Saturday. And we may even remember Dr. Kyle Johnson, Sci-Fi Saturday, The Orville, and possibly even Marie. So we'll see y'all later.
Be like Pontius Pilate and wash your hands of all of this.
That's right. Just keep washing your hands. Quit touching your face. Don't touch your face. Why are you touching your face? Quit touching your face. I'll see you guys later. Have a great weekend.